Here we are on the front of our Grand Design Imagine 24 BSE. We're going to do a delivery walkthrough like you would as an owner. And whenever you take delivery of your unit, going through all the components on it, a little bit of operations. And if you want more information on these items or different name brand items that might come in your floor plan unit, you can find that in the HAPS Helpful Hack section on our YouTube channel. For now, we're going to go through and give you a refresher on this design. So in the front, of course, you're going to have your 7-way plug you start off with, plugs into your vehicle, transfers all of your lights and everything to your trailer. It's also going to carry a battery charge line that'll feed off of your alternator and help charge your battery while that engine is running on your towing vehicle. You also have a brake control wire that's going to come from your brake controller to the trailer to stop it whenever you hit the brakes on your actual towing vehicle. Also here we have our breakaway cable. That breakaway cable is going to lead down to a little box. That's your breakaway box. This should be latched on to where you hook up your safety chains on your receiver hitch, not to the hitch itself, because in the event any of that breaks, the idea is for this to stay with the vehicle and that pin to be pulled out of that box and activate the brakes on the trailer and bring it to a safe stop. In order for that to happen, you do have to have a good 12-volt operational battery on the trailer, otherwise there's no power to emit those brakes. Before we travel, we need to make sure that that pin is all the way inserted in that box. Otherwise, you'll have the brakes activated when you don't want them to. Here we have our 12-volt power tongue jack right here, fed off of your battery power. You have an on-off switch for your light, extend and retract on here as well. In the event that it is not operational, you can kick that light on, make sure that it turns on, means you have 12 volts to it, maybe that motor burn up. If so, you can go ahead and pull that black cap, put a manual crank handle in there and manually crank that jack up or down to get you out of a bad situation. If your light doesn't turn on, you may not have 12 volts to your battery. You can follow that line right there and see if there's a fuse in line that is blown, and that might be the issue there. Behind that, you have dual propane tanks, so 2 propane tanks with a dual propane regulator. A dual propane regulator is going to feed off of your primary tank, depending on which tank you have that selector valve on. That will be your primary, and the other one will be your secondary. When that primary runs dry, of course, the indicator is going to change, signifying that, hey, this one is empty, and it will begin to pull from that secondary tank. Once it does, you can go ahead and swap to that secondary tank. If it has enough gas in it, that indicator will change to a full position. The now secondary tank can be pulled out and changed or refilled. Behind that, we have our battery box. That's where we're going to have our 12-volt battery for our system. On the driver's side, we have our pass-through bay over here. We have our automatic lights in here. We have a light switch that can control that, but they do have motion detection in here, so when you wave your hand or open that compartment door, those lights will turn on if you have that switch on. We also have our Lippert tire link system. It is pre-wired for the power for that system. All you have to do is buy that upgrade. It will come with the sensors for the tires and the system to be able to plug in right here so you can monitor it from your vehicle while you're traveling down the road. We also have our Furrion solar controller system. That is going to transfer that solar power and change it into charging power for your battery whenever there is sun, of course. We have a couple other things on our panel right here. Let's take a closer look at that. So we can see we have a number of components in this front compartment. Up top here we have our solar disconnect. That solar disconnect is going to shut off that solar system. So in the event we don't want to operate that, we can just turn that off. If we are parked and we want to utilize that solar, then we want to make sure that that is on. Below that, down at the bottom here, is our actual battery disconnect. That one is going to disconnect our battery from the system. So if we park our unit and we're not plugged in and we're storing our unit, then generally you're going to want to turn this off so the lights, so on and so forth, isn't pulling off of that battery and we still have some charge left whenever we are ready to pick our unit back up. Now, if we turn this off, it will not affect that solar. So if you want to keep the solar on and use that to help charge that battery while it's disconnected, you can still do that. If you are plugged in anywhere, camping, storage, anything like that, you want that battery disconnect on so that charging system can charge your battery while it's plugged in. This switch right here is for the underglow under your unit. You have a couple of spots, you'll see a little blue light pop up onto there. Here we have a 110 outlet that is GFCI protected. We'll talk a little bit more about GFCI whenever we get to the inside of the unit. Up here we have our coax ports for satellite cable and auxiliary if there's something else that we want to plug in there. These ports will all lead to ports inside the unit wherever there is a TV. Here we have our city water connection. This is where we would hook up if we do have a hose bib at the campground where we're at, or we're at our house. Run that hose to it, turn the water on, and then we will have water at all of our faucets. Right here we have our tank fill or city option. So if we're using that city option, we have to have this valve turned down to go to our faucets. If we want to fill up our freshwater tank, which is our onboard storage, then we want to go ahead and turn that valve to the tank fill and then fill it up. We can monitor that by our meter on the inside, we'll get to in a little while. So once we are done, we can go ahead and kick it back over to city. We'll utilize that water in that tank by using our 12-volt water pump. Below that is a quick connect for our coil hose system. We can go ahead and hook that in there, and then we have a spray port right here on the side. Below our pass-through compartment, we have a stabilizer. We're going to have this on all 4 corners. This is a manual stabilizer. You'll take your crank and run it down. Idea is to stabilize your unit. These are not going to level your unit. They have a weight rating on them, and the weight rating is well below the weight of the trailer. So we don't want to crank and try to use these to level out our unit. When we put them down, we want to keep that diamond-shaped form. That is the best form for stabilization. If we have to get some stacker blocks to put under there in order to help keep that form, then that's what we need to do. If we have them straight up and down, they will bend and break and get mangled up. And so keep that recommended form in order to have that best stabilization. If we want to level our unit, we need to get those stacker blocks and put them under our tires when we go to park that unit into the spot to level it from left to right. And then we use our front tongue jack to level it from front to back. Then we put our stabilizers down. Right, still on the driver's side, right by our axles, we have our Suburban furnace. This is a gas operated furnace to go ahead and heat your unit. Go over a little more operation on that when we hit the inside. Both your front and rear slide out are going to be Schwintek slide systems. We can tell that by this rail system right here on the side and at the top on the side on both sides. If you want more information about that Schwintek system, we've got great videos on our helpful hacks section on our YouTube channel. Under this slide out, you'll see a 4-inch port right here. This is for one of your hoses. This is going to be a gray tank system. This is where we would go ahead and empty out our system. We'll talk a little bit more about the difference between gray and black when we hit our next sewage port. Just know that you have one right here, and the valve to empty it is right next to it. Moving down the line, we have our Furrion tankless water heater. It's going to be 12 volts to operate the display on the inside, and propane to go ahead and heat that water in that system. Once again, endless, so as long as you're running that hot water, you're going to have hot water in that system. Below here we have a pipe. That pipe has a little door that opens up, and we can keep our actual sewer hose in there, so nice little storage. And behind that we have our 2 valves, our black tank valve and our gray tank valves down here at the bottom, and our sewer port right here. So our sewer port, that is where we're going to hook up that hose to be able to run to either the sewer port at the campsite or a dump station, whatever. When our tanks are full, we're going to empty them out. Now we have that gray port in the front. You can get a Y connection and hook both of them together so they can drain all at one time. And you have another gray tank right here. So our gray tanks are sink water and shower water. So we can leave those valves open all the time because you're really not going to have any deposits in there. Those valves can stay open. That water can drain out during your entire camping trip as long as you have that port at the campsite, and let it drain out so you don't have to go and open it up every time it gets full. Our black tank, however, that is everything from our toilet. That's our sewage, our toilet paper, so on and so forth. We don't want to leave that valve open all the time. We want to leave it closed. In order to flush out that system whenever it's full or we're done with our camping trip, we have our hose hooked up, we open that valve, we let everything dump out of that system. Whenever it is done dumping, we want to hook up to our black flush connection, which we'll show you the location of that in a little while. Hook a water hose up to that, turn it on, and there's a little jet sprayer inside that tank that's going to help push that debris down to your valve over here and let it drain out. Now once you're done with that, you want to go ahead and disconnect that black tank flush, close your valve, go on the inside, hold down the pedal in your toilet, and let several gallons of fresh water get into that tank, and then add your chemicals. Now once you do that, while you're driving down the road, that fresh water will help clean that tank out a little bit more, knock any more debris down, and of course chemicals are going to help degrade whatever's in there. Now there are more tips to that black tank flush. This is how the manufacturer recommends to do it. There's some pro tips. I suggest watching that black tank system flush video on our YouTube channel. It'll give you a lot more tips about how to flush that tank out a little bit better. Behind that, we do have another stabilizer jacks like I mentioned. We'll have that on all four corners. On the back of our unit, we'll notice a receiver hitch down here at the bottom. No tow hooks for the chains, no four-way plug for the lights. That means that is for a buggy or a bike rack, anything you want to put back here, but not set for towing a trailer. So keep that in mind when you use that. We have our 30-amp twist cord connection right here. Whenever we go to put that in, we want to put it in, turn it to the right, and we want to use that little retainer ring on there, tighten it up. That way kids running around can't accidentally yank it out and disrupt power to our unit. Now, after we plugged it in here, then we want to go plug it in at our pedestal. Before we do, want to make sure that our air conditioners are off. That way it doesn't cause any surges to that compressor. We also want to do the same thing whenever we go to unplug it and roll up that cord. We also have our factory supplied ladder right here. That ladder is going to gain access to our roof. Why do we need to gain access to our roof? So we can check our sealants every 60 to 90 days. All the sealants around your vents, your trim, your end caps, everything we need to check every 60 to 90 days for any cracking, peeling, deterioration, anything like that. Clean it and reseal it. If we don't do that, we can have some leaks in our system. Manufacturers aren't going to take care of those kind of repairs. It's considered customer maintenance. We also need to check our roof for any low-lying tree limbs, anything that might have dragged that roof, poked a hole, anything like that, and take care of those items too before it becomes a bigger problem. We're also going to have sealant around some of our windows, our trim, our lights, any fitting or anything on the side of our unit, you're going to have sealant around it. Same thing, every 60 to 90 days, check it and make sure we don't have any peeling or deterioration, cracking, opening, allowing water entry. It's just like changing oil in your car. You're maintaining your unit so it'll last for years to come. We also are pre-wired for our Furrion backup camera system up here. The wiring is already ran for the power. All you got to do is purchase that backup camera and you can have it installed. All right, in our front pass-through on the passenger side, we are prepped for an inverter system, meaning we are pre-wired. That means that the wiring's already ran. We can purchase an inverter, and that inverter will change 12-volt power to 110 power if we need to plug in small appliances feeding off of that inverter because we don't have a plug-in. Behind me here, of course, we have our awning. Our awning is mainly a sunshade, right? If a storm comes in, we're leaving our unit for an extended period of time, really windy, we'll roll that awning in so you don't end up with an expensive insurance claim from it being torn down. Another thing we need to know about our awning is when we pull it out, we need to pitch it either to the front or the rear, one or the other. And in order to do that, real easy. Grab this arm once it's extended and just pull it down, and then that will lean that awning to the front or to the rear, whichever way you want to go once again, and allow that water to drain out. Now the water I'm talking about is maybe AC condensation from our air conditioner running. It could be light dew, it could be light rain, anything like that. We have to pitch our awning, otherwise that water could puddle on our awning and it can collapse, causing a safety hazard for anybody that's under it, as well as another expensive insurance claim. Ready to roll our awning in? Just go ahead and push it back up like that, get it in form, and you can roll that awning in. Once again, 12-volt operated device. You're also going to have awning lights under here that are also 12-volt operated. All right, so our entry doors in the front and the rear are going to work the same way. You're going to feel a little friction on that door. That's because we have friction-controlled hinges on there to help reduce that wind from being able to blow it shut. So that'll help a little bit. You also have these latches on the back to go ahead and hold them in position, mainly so this one doesn't bang our awning arm. Now our steps are fold-up steps. Just grab them, fold them up to pull them out. Just grab them, pull them out. You need to lubricate all those hinge points regularly. We also need to make sure we don't have any chipping paint. If we do, we want to go ahead and paint over it. That way that rust doesn't take over that area. Also see a little small hole right here. We take that crank handle, we put it in there, and we can lower our spare tire down in the event we ever need it. We have a 110 outlet right here and a coax port that is for our outdoor TV. That 110 outlet is GFCI protected. So once again, we'll talk about more of that whenever we get inside. Just remember, all of our outside and wet locations are all going to be GFCI protected outlets. This port right here, if we pull that cap off, that's another way that we can fill that fresh tank. Fresh tank is that onboard storage, right? We're going somewhere, we know we're not going to have water. We fill that up, and then we can utilize it through our 12-volt water pump. Now, we don't want to keep water in there we don't need. That's extra weight for our units. If we don't need it, drain it out. And if we're not going to use it, drain it out, because that water will be stagnant over time. In order to drain it out, under our J-wrap, we do have a white valve. Pull that white valve and that fresh tank will empty out. We're also going to see a propane quick disconnect right under here too if we want to hook up an outdoor griddle or anything like that. That is a propane line that will feed to our tanks in the front. Moving down the line, we have our vent right here. This vent is for our stovetop vent. If we want to ventilate out, we need to make sure these tabs are open, that vent is open so the air will actually come out. And when we store our unit, we want to make sure it's closed. That way no insects, rodents can build any nests in there. Here we have another quick connect spray port for that blue coiled hose that we had in our front compartment. And next to it is that black tank flush that we use to help sanitize that black tank when we are draining it out. Our rear entry is going to work the same as our front. Steps are the same. We have another stabilizer jack right here. But we're also going to notice a red and blue line up under here. Those are our low point drains. We're going to go there when we want to drain all the water out of our system, start prepping for winterization. If you want to learn more about our winterization for this unit, you can refer to your owner's manual or check out our video on HAP's Helpful Hacks. As we come into the front entrance of our unit, we have our COLP detector that's going to warn you of any harmful gases in your unit. It'll alert you and you need to exit your vehicle. There is a little green light on here. That green light lets you know that it is powered up. It's a 12-volt hardwired operated device straight to your battery. They have a little chirper on here. We can go ahead and test that chirper by holding it down. We do need to check that, make sure it's operational. They do have an expiration date on these. You have to pull them off. Sometimes they're stamped on the front or the back. Make sure we're changing that out after it has expired so we can stay safe. We also are going to have smoke detectors in our unit. Same thing. We need to check, make sure they're powered up and test them. They will be powered by a 9-volt battery in there, so make sure we're changing those out regularly. Our dinette area can fold down into a more sleeping. We can do that by just releasing these latches at the bottom. It's a little telescopic table. This table will go down like so, and then we can latch that back in to keep it down. We want it up, unlatch it, pull it up, and it'll sit on these little bumpers, and you can move your cushions down to have more sleeping area. So in our kitchen area, we also have our TV. Behind there is a coax port with cable and satellite. It's also going to have a little red button with a light on it. Whenever you push that button, that light's going to turn on. That means that you have a 12-volt boost for your air channels. So if you don't have cable, you're searching for air channels, you want to make sure that light is on. In the event you are searching for cable channels because you have a port at the campground, hook your cable up and then scan for cable channels. You want to make sure that light is off because otherwise it will scramble those channels. In this first cabinet here, we do have our control center. We'll go over that now. So here we have our control center. We can scan this little QR code right here for our One Control app and put in the password, device name, and that'll allow us to have a connection to our control system right here. We'll be able to operate some of these items from that app. We can hold down this button right here to be able to connect that. That's that Bluetooth button. Up here we have our gauges that tell us for our fresh tank, black tank, and gray tanks what the levels are, and then as far as our battery is concerned, what the level of that is. We have our ceiling light and our exterior light. That exterior light is going to be for our awning light, and then we have our 12-volt water pump right here. This would extract the water from that fresh tank. If our fresh tank is empty, like we show here, we need to go ahead and shut that off, otherwise it will burn that pump up. This is going to be an on-demand pump. Whenever you turn the water on, you're probably going to hear it vibrate and pumping that water out. In the event we have city water connection, make sure that water pump is off as well. We have our awning and our 2 slide outs for in and out for all of those. To the left here, we have that ceiling light that can turn everything off and on in our living room, and we can operate the dimness and brightness of that through that little slider. On the wall in our living room, we have our Furrion thermostat for our AC system, and it also will control our heat. We'll go over the operation of that now. We'll start with our cool option first. Our cool will cool the air throughout our unit. We of course set our thermostat to whatever point we want it to be, and we have our fan speed options. We have low and high. For low and high, that fan will run all the time. Now whenever we want that fan to cut off, whenever the compressor cuts off, much like we likely do at home, we have it on auto. That system will shut off and on with the compressor. Our next mode is our heat mode. Our heat mode activates our gas-powered furnace on our unit. We choose our set point, and our heater will come on whenever necessary. There is fan speeds on here, but it does not change the fan speed on that furnace. It is a single fan speed on there controlled by the furnace board. Our next mode is our fan mode. Our fan mode simply circulates air throughout our unit without cooling it or anything. This will come out of our rooftop air. and we can just change from high to low to control that fan speed if we wish. That fan will stay on the entire time when we have it in our fan mode. Our last mode is our dry mode. Our dry mode is like a dehumidifier. We can choose our set point and it will cool our unit down to that set point, and it will continue to cool past that, but alternate every 6 to 10 minutes off and on. That way it doesn't drop that temperature too low and freeze you out of the unit, but it still dries the air in your unit. Another thing to note with our furnace is that the air is going to come out of the vents on the floor. It's not going to come out of the rooftop air. Your only rooftop air is going to be your fan and your cool and your dry. Your heat will come out of those floor vents from the furnace. We'll notice here we have our sealing assembly for our air conditioner. We have our filter right here. We need to make sure that filter stays clean. Pull it back down with these two tabs. We can clean it off. Make sure we're not restricting air to our AC to help it run efficiently. We also have a vent right here. Whenever it is open, it's called a quick dump. We can dump the air straight out of there into this area, cool it off a little quicker. When we close it, then the air will circulate through our ductwork all through the ceiling, circulate it better throughout the entire unit. Now, only cool air is going to come out of this top AC. Your heat is going to come out of the vents on the floor. In that kitchen area, of course, we're going to have our 110 microwave, our Furrion stovetop vent with a light on it. That stovetop vent, remember the vent outside, we need to make sure it's open for this to actually work. Then we have our 3-burner stove right here and oven. 3-burner stove has a glass top right here. We can use this for extra counter space. This is a position that needs to be in when we travel. When we use our actual burners, we need to flip this up. Now when we want to go to light it, we can go ahead and just pick our designated knob, turn it to the flame, and turn it until it ignites. We also have a switch over here on the side that will light those knobs up. And if we click it down, it'll light up the oven and the knobs. Now you'll notice whether the lights are off or on, those knobs will turn red when they're turned on, letting you know that gas is being emitted out of the system. So if you don't want it on, you notice it's on, it's a good indication we need to turn it off. Helps especially if you have kids. Now, one thing to remember is anytime we pull our unit out of storage and we had our propane tanks on, or if we just change those propane tanks out, we're going to end up with air in our system. So the easiest way to bleed that air out of our system, of course, is turn that propane on, come over here and light one of these burners. It will take a little bit of time for it to light, but once it lights, let it run for about 60 seconds, get all that air out of the system until we got a nice crisp flame. I always suggest doing that before we operate components like our water heater or our furnace, because those systems will go into a fault if it's still pushing air through that system. So best thing to do after you do that is come over here, and you're only going to have to do it once after you open those tanks. Then you close them off for a period of time. If you open them back up again, then you'll have to do it again. So best practice, do it before every camping trip, right? Below that, we have our oven. Now our oven is going to be slightly different. We're going to turn it to that flame ignition point right there. We're still going to use our manual crank knob right here, but we have to hold this button down, push it in. If we don't do that, it's not going to push the propane through on that pilot light down there. Once our pilot is lit, and it may still take a little bit of time, the first time you light it after you bled the air out, after that it'll get easier. But once it's lit, then we want to go ahead and let it run for about 30 to 60 seconds, let that thermocouple warm up, and then we let off of that knob and we can turn it to the desired temperature. At that point, that burner tube will light up and we're ready to cook. Here we have our Furrion refrigerator, 12-volt refrigerator. We do have a control knob right here to be able to adjust our temperature. We can turn the system off, meaning that it's not going to cool. And then we also have our off-grid option that will reduce the amount of power that it's using. We would use that if we are boondocking or anything like that to help save some of that voltage on our battery. Now, if we turn this system off or we store our unit unplugged, obviously everything is going to turn off, right? So once we do that, we need to wipe out all the condensation in here, let it air out. And in our freezer, we need to defrost it, get any water or ice out of there as well. Otherwise, that water could leak out and damage our wood components around our refrigerator, and it could also cause mold and mildew. So make sure we're taking care of that properly, because manufacturers don't participate in that kind of damage. So we need to make sure we're cleaning it out and defrosting it the right way. We'll notice right next to our fridge, we have that 110 control center and 12 volt. So we'll see our 12 volt fuses right here, all labeled to let us know what components it operates. And then we have our 110 breakers right here. And you can see that all of those are labeled as well to know what they actually operate. In the event something's not working, we can come here to check out that system. You're also going to hear a little fan running behind here. That is our converter, which is basically a battery charger. When we're plugged in, we're changing that 110 voltage to 12 volt voltage to charge that battery. Not too much to go over in our bedroom. Of course, it's one of your slides. Whenever you go to roll that slide in, you'll flip that mattress up on top itself to run it in so it can run properly. And then over here we have another backer location for our TV here in the bedroom, as well as a cable output that will also give you air antenna and another 110 outlet to feed that TV. All right, in the bathroom right next to our sink, we have that GFCI main outlet right here. So all the GFCI outlets I talked about, we got them in our kitchen, outside, so on and so forth. If any of those are not working, want to come over here, see if this green light is on. If it's not on, like we just showed right here, then that means that system is tripped. So just like a breaker, we would just reset that system, that green light should come on. If it automatically trips again, we want to go check, make sure we don't have any too many coffee makers, griddles, so on and so forth plugged in, and make sure that none of those outlets are wet. Those are the two main things that will trip that GFCI outlet. In our bathroom, we can see we have two switches. One's going to be for our light, one is going to be for that vent fan. We want to operate that whenever we take a shower and stuff, help get the heat and humidity out of here, reduce the chance for mold and mildew. We have our Furrion tankless water heater system, real simple system. We go ahead and turn it on by hitting that button right there on the side. It'll give us our set temperature, whatever we want that water temperature to be. We can change it with our arrows here on the side, and then we can also change from Fahrenheit to Celsius if we wish. Power indicator right there will let us know that the system is on, Fahrenheit, Celsius, whichever one you're on. And then flame, that flame icon will light up when our hot water is actually turned on, letting you know that that system is operational. Besides that, not much you need to do to it besides set it and forget it. All right, in our bathroom, of course, we have our shower, standard hot, cold knobs. But on our shower head, we do have a little on-off button right here. That on-off button can be used if we are dry camping and we just want to shut off that shower head in between soaping up and rinsing off. That way we can reduce the amount of water we're putting into our gray tank or the amount of water we're using out of our fresh tank, and then we don't have to fight to find that sweet spot with the hot water anymore. So just shut off at the shower head. If you don't want to use it that way, that's fine. If you are using a city water connection, you do have a sewage dump on site, then we can just use it like we would at our house. Our toilet is pretty cut and dry. Got a valve down there at the bottom to be able to flush it. We're only putting number 1 and number 2 in there, toilet paper and chemicals. That's it. Don't put anything else because it will get clogged up in the valve on there and be an expensive repair. So make sure we're only putting sewage in there along with the toilet paper and chemicals. Toilet paper, we are talking about RV toilet paper only. That way it decomposes properly in that system. Put number 1 in there, do our number 1, we flush it, ready to roll. Number 2, we need to fill that bowl up about half to 3/4 of the way. That way when we do go to flush it, those solids have enough water in there to help flush that stuff all the way down the pipes into our tanks. Once again, add our chemicals as needed.
Well, we hope you found that resourceful. But wait, there's more information on our Great American RV YouTube channel. This channel right here, find the playlist Hap's Helpful Hacks. We go over different products in this unit and we'll take a deeper dive with more diagnostics, more information, as well as helpful tips when you're out camping. Tell your buddies, tell your friends, like, share, subscribe, do all those awesome things on YouTube, TikTok, wherever you found us. And keep watching here at Great American RV Superstores, where we bring the how-to you.